Ready?
Ready?
1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the Clean and Sober Stoner.
Oh man, that might be the one. That might be, like if I do a podcast, it's got that. That was really good. It's like you're so good at this.
Well, I used to do voiceovers professionally, so.
No way.
Yeah. So.
I have Vitsker student where, they like work on Godzilla movies. And now I find out, okay, America wants to know what voiceover, like, what'd you do?
Well, this was like 5-10 years ago. Well, 5 years ago, maybe. My voice is on a whole bunch of radio ads in Southwest somewhere. I'm bilingual, so there are a whole bunch of Spanish radio ads also that I've done.
Can you say welcome to Clean and Sober in Espanol?
Sure. It's only one or two words difference. It's Bienvenido a Clean and Sober.
I interviewed Demons, my friends, a hot band. They're out of Texas and Mexico, and great guys. And it dawned on me that we don't spend nearly the Latin American scene from Mexico on is hotter than balls. Not just death metal, but the stoner three-wheeler band comes to mind. Amazing band.
Yeah, a lot of them. Since I got into the stoner rock world 3 or 4 years ago, I've found a whole bunch of Spanish magazines, online sites with bands, like tons of bands. I mean, the Spanish punk thing was huge back in the 90s. And so I think it seems that punk grows into stoner doom or something. So I think that was the natural progression in South America and Central America as well.
I think all roads lead to stoner doom. Grunge kind of morphed, in a lot of ways. We don't like to admit it. But it kind of morphed like pretty heavily into, and now you have bands like Windhand openly, citing the reference with their last album. Look, I could banter with you all day. So Titanosaur, and this is a really big deal to me because I totally slept on your latest album, Echoes, which really sucks because you're constantly chatting with me on Instagram. You're constantly on social media. It's like you're liking, I swear if I sneezed, right, I go, and then I'm going to get a big thumbs up from Titan. And then I slept on the album. It happens when we're getting 200 to 300 albums. And I just took it for granted. And, this isn't an apology so much as we're going to make this right, because this easily would have been in a contested #1 for August.
Oh, jeez.
This album, from start to finish, I didn't expect. And I really want to go there, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much. That's
so
awesome.
let's give the background, because I one of the things about this album that I think everybody who in the world who's not listening to this, not watching this video, should check this album out. A lot of bands, they write about, pain and misery and near-death experience, but a lot of times it has this fantasy element to it. Best Varielsen comes to mind. They did some great stuff on their last album, but yours is kind of what's the word I'm looking for, real.
I think the main problem for me in writing lyrics is that I have trouble. I mean, I don't know if this is a problem, but I have trouble singing what I call silly lyrics. Like, if it doesn't come out of my mouth naturally, then I have trouble singing it with conviction. So that's why there aren't a lot of fantasy type things. I have one on my album 2, which is a concept album that came out in 2019. I have one there that was kind of fantasy while I was thinking about it. It's like a night or something, but it translates into the struggle I was having at that time, which was that whole album is dealing with the death of my mom the year before. So it all sort of fit together in that way. But again, I don't mention dragons or any fire breathing, anything like that. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why there isn't a lot of that.
Well, also, I mean, you're able to tap into your regular experiences, and I don't want to make a huge deal about it. I don't want to be an ableist. I don't want. Wait a minute, did I just say that? Look, this album is dealing with issues regarding your memory, issues regarding your heart. And as much as you're comfortable, get us up to speed, because I think when someone like me has the context of what this album actually is, it makes the experience way more intense, way more intense. We'll get into the music, but knowing a little bit about you as a human makes this album totally different.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So I'm on the heart transplant list. I've been in heart failure for 4 years now. Let's see, about 4 years. And yeah, I'm in and out of the hospital. So in January, I was in the hospital for about 5 weeks, waiting for a heart transplant. And then I somehow got better. So they kicked me out. But I've been in and out of the hospital at least 2 times since then. And, yeah, the lyrics come from a personal place most of the time. For this album, a few of the songs were started while I was in the hospital, because I had to have my guitar. I can't not play music. So if I was there for 5 weeks, I needed to play something. So I plugged into an iPad and started recording some riffs. And those I fleshed out once I came back home and added some lyrics. I'm constantly writing lyrics, so I take little pieces here and there and put it into something that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics.
Yeah, nice lighthearted story. Sorry for the pun. Okay, so you come out with this album, and on Bandcamp it says you're kind of tapping into your goth roots on this one.
Yeah, it was more. I guess. I mean, they're always there. Obviously, your influences are always there, but for this one, I was definitely. So part of my thing with memory is I start a story and then I start going backwards, because then I start remembering stuff. I had an industrial goth project, I guess you call it, which I was doing before Titanosaur, but it was very serious and dark kind of stuff. So I wanted to do something more lighthearted or easier to do. And so that's why I started Titanosaur. And so I stopped doing the other one, the Ray Gun Girls, back in 2019, 2020. And so that side of me is still there, and I kind of tried to stay away from it so that there would be a clear division of the type of music. But then I decided to, over the years, I've realized in listening to other bands in this scene that it wouldn't be difficult, or it wouldn't be too far out of left field if that part bled into the music. So I let it this time.
When I read the goth thing, I was expecting kind of a Bauhaus, maybe Cure, but this is more of a goth industrial. And the one band consistently comes through my mind every time I, by the way, obsessively listen to this album over and over. Were you ever a fan of Prong?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tommy's all over this without you stealing Prong. It's like Prong sometimes could go over the rails. Sometimes they would write songs that were very noisy, but no offense, they're gods. But every now and then they lose their groove. But when they were in their real groove, whose fist is this anyway?
Yeah.
One Outnumbered. and there are a lot of elements in this that kind of is going about the same beats per minute. You have a very similar chord progression, very similar programmed drums, and then you give it this chordal twist so you're way more melodic. But I just can't help but think of Prong when I listen to this.
Well, one of the biggest influences for me is Killing Joke, which is also a big influence on Prong. So that's probably why they have this similarity. Not only that, but we both grew up in Queens. So there's also that sound in there.
Do you know him by chance?
No, I don't know him, but I know of Prong, and I've listened to Prong, and I know a lot behind his music. So
I haven't heard the new one yet. Have you heard it?
I've heard a little bit here and there. It's definitely more hardcore, more on the hardcore side. But I definitely prefer the more groove-oriented stuff that he does.
You're in the hospital, similar to Mike Scheid from Yop when he wrote "Beauty of Falling Leaves" and other songs from their last album. So you're sketching out on your iPad the songs. Then you're self-produced. You're doing everything yourself, the bass, the drums, the vocals. And you're very limited, as I understand it, you're limited as to how long you can actually work during the day.
I definitely, because making music is a physical act, I have more energy in the morning. So somewhere between 9 and 1-ish is when I have the most energy. So that's when I can sing the best and play the best to put energy into the riffs that I'm recording. So there's that limitation. And then, of course, every day is different. Sometimes there's just no energy at all. And then in the past month, I run out of air faster, so I haven't been able to do any vocals for any new stuff that might be coming down the pike.
That's amazing. So this album in its entirety was recorded in 3-hour chunks, more or less?
More or less, yeah. The thing for me is that I constantly have music going in my head, so I can basically write a song in an hour. So that's how I write. I record a ton of riffs in an hour. I can pretty much put together a song, and then I go back and fix it and add layers. But yeah, about 3-hour chunks over 3 months, maybe.
I'm such a slacker. I'm never at peak. So, once you hit my age and all that, but I've got 16 hours, during the day and a little bit too much time doing, certain video games. And no, that is an absolutely amazing story. Where does Titanosaur come from? One of the confusing things, it's not a criticism. It'll sound like it is at first, but you're dealing with very real material. It's your personal experience. And Titanosaur, to me, when I first heard the name, it was like party rock, dude.
Well, that's how that was the idea when I started it, because I wanted it to be something different than the goth side. So if you listen to like the first album, there are a couple of silly songs on there.
Right.
But it's just not something that I can force out of me.
Now, I know a lot of people are going to be streaming on, hopefully thousands and thousands of people are streaming on Spotify, so you can get your $4. But people who buy this on Bandcamp get something extra that I don't think I've ever seen before. And I have to applaud you, sir, for this one. Who does your artwork for the songs?
That's also, everything is done in-house. For the most part, I do the artwork. Sometimes my uncle helps out, like on Absence of Universe from last year and No One Home. He helped out with the artwork there. But for the most part, it's just me.
The biggest complaint about, it's like, I have vinyl back here. I never use vinyl, but you've got the gatefold and you've got the pictures and you have the lyrics. you've done something I haven't seen anybody else do. Every song has its own artwork accompanying it.
Yeah, well, you release singles, so you have to have artwork for the singles. And then, so I released about 3 singles before the album. And I was like, well, I don't want that artwork to get lost. So I have to figure out what to do with it. And just to put 3 pieces into this PDF insert that you get when you download the album just didn't make sense. So I went and created artwork for every single song on there.
3 hours a day, right?
3 hours, that's it.
It's an ambitious thing. So I don't even know that you've done this. And so whenever I really review an album, I'm listening to it on these headphones. I'm listening to it on my computer speakers. I listen to them on my TV speakers, my car stereo. And then we have this porch that has these fantastic speed. They're real small, no bass. Like anything below 80 hertz, it's gone. But it sounds wonderful. I think they're Polk. And so I'm just futzing around and I'm listening, and all of a sudden I realize that's different artwork. And then I just started like compulsively hitting next. I was like, my mind was blown, because I can get lost in looking at the artwork, feeling how the lyrics fit with the artwork, fit with the song, fit with what you're doing. For that reason alone, everybody needs to buy this album on Bandcamp, because it's not just, hey, I put this little album out. It's like, no, it's an entire comprehensive work of art.
Yeah, that was the unfortunate thing, that it can't do that for streaming. I can't send out an album with separate artwork for each song. So yeah, it's on Bandcamp there for everybody.
And besides, once you get it on Bandcamp, you can still stream it.
Yeah.
And it's still can. So Bandcamp. What do you think about do you think Bandcamp's really going away?
I don't. I've been trying to stay away from that whole argument. When it got bought out, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago that we all got the notice? It's very. I'm waiting to see what happens. It's very possible that because most of the time when a company takes over another one, they have to fire people. It's just part of company takeover. So is that a bad thing? Well, yeah, these people lost their jobs. In the overall scheme of things, I don't know yet. Right. It could potentially be something very helpful for the bands if the company that bought it, I don't remember their name, SoundCloud, I don't know.
Epic Games.
Well, Epic Games first bought it, and then a couple of weeks ago, somebody else bought it from Epic Games.
I'm too busy. And I can tell you why. The beginning, you made some really interesting artistic choices, especially with the drum machine intro. And then the song I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let the people actually hear what it is I'm babbling on about. Okay. There's so much going on in this song. Hands off, because it starts out, it's kind of like Duran Duran meets Prong, and then it becomes totally unlike either one of those bands. Can you give us a little background on what you were thinking during the production of this?
Yeah. I love the fake out. So when you do that low kind of distorted thing and everybody's like turning up the volume and then you slam in. So I love doing that. When I put together a song, like I said before, I recorded in about an hour for the most part. And then I start going in and messing around with it. So the whole song is done and I'm trying to figure out how to start it. What's going to make it interesting at the beginning to get you into the song? So, there are a lot of different options. They're starting with the bass, starting with the drums, and once I've done all of those already, it's like, well, okay, what can I do differently? Because these other songs already start that way on the album. I need something different. So that's pretty much the thought process. Then once I had the drums and the thinned out guitar, then I wanted something else to punch it in, bring you into the song. So that's why I added the rising vocal, repeated sound, I guess, whatever you want to call it, coming into it. So that, for me as well, this is one of my favorite songs on this album because of little things like that.
Yeah, the detail, and I think every one of your songs has that personal touch. So you're to interpret what you're saying, you start out a little stock, like you have the basic riff, the basic progression, and then you go, it sounds too much like me, and then you throw a little something else from somewhere else, so it sounds a little less like you, to build into it, and then it's pure Jeff. It's so good.
I don't want to sound egotistical or anything, but over the years, I've realized that there really is no other music that sounds like what I do.
Right.
My music sounds really like an amalgamation of tons of other stuff filtered through me. So that's why it's been difficult also to describe the music sometimes. But everybody seems to like the whole, it's like Motorhead fucking Metallica in the ass hard. That seems to be the perfect way to describe it.
But slowed down to a degree. There's definitely some Metallica in your stuff. Vocally, I think, like you're aware of your limited range vocally. So instead of giving a lot of different effects and a lot of different, tricks, you lean into it.
Yeah, definitely. With the Ray Gun Girls, I used to try to sing differently because it was like, all right, this is sort of goth, so I have to have this sort of like Sisters of Mercy kind of clean vocal thing. But it doesn't sound right. I can't hit the right notes. I go flat a lot of times. So just comfortable with my voice the way it is. It comes out nice and powerful. I just do the notes that I can hit and work around that.
I think it's with fantastic effect. Like I said, overall, this album to me would have been in competition for album of the month in August. I can predict this is definitely solidly, in my upper sphere for album of the year, since we have to start putting that stuff together again. So you're also like actively involved Instagram. Where's all your social media? Because everybody's going to want to follow you on social media.
I'm on Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Those are pretty much it because, hey, if I only have, some of that stuff I can do while sitting on the couch, not really doing anything. But, I only have a certain amount of time, energy to put towards stuff, so I can't really have too much going on. But those are pretty much it, Instagram, X. I also am on TikTok, but I haven't really been posting there much. And it's all Titanosaur Rocks.
It's absolutely great stuff. TikTok's one that I've got a decent following there. It's like every day I get like 10 more, but I put like one thing up. I don't know. I think a lot of it might be bots. Instagram by far has been my best outlet.
Well, that's also where I got the most connections when I first started. The most connections, the most interactions, the most engagement was from there, and the most stuff that I saw also that I was able to engage in with other people. In the past few months, it seems for me to have fallen off a little bit on Instagram, and now all of a sudden there's a ton of stuff on Facebook. Everybody was kind of staying away from Facebook, it seemed, and now back on Facebook. I don't know. So
it's hard to predict. It's so hard to predict. I think some of my geeks would unsubscribe from my channel if I didn't ask them basics. What are you using for your DAW? What are you using for the main recording?
So since you like the album so much, this might blow you away. GarageBand.
Yes, well, I'm not blown away. Acid King. Beyond Vision was recorded on GarageBand. And as I remember it, they were thinking about re-recording it, and Lori's like, it sounds good enough. GarageBand, what has changed in GarageBand, do you think, over the past 5 years? Because that's slowly becoming the platform of choice.
I don't know. For me, it's always just been that it's free. That's why I started on GarageBand, and the learning curve for me, to use others is just way too big for me to suddenly stop here and learn how to use, Pro Tools or anything else, or Cubase or whatever. So that's why I stay with GarageBand. I've thought about maybe trying Logic, since it's sort of they're both sort of the same a little bit. But yeah, GarageBand is free. I think that's one of the biggest things for up and coming bands.
Are you using any sort of interface?
So up until about 3 or 4 years ago, I wasn't. I would just go straight into the computer. But now I've been using M Audio Air.
And then are you using any like amp simulation, speaker cab simulation?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as many free plugins. Most of the stuff is free. Some of the stuff was... came out like for one of those limited time free things like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So I was lucky enough to see that, grab it, and now it's like $200. But it's some of this stuff like on the vocals. The one plugin that I use, the Ultra Channel, is amazing. And without that, I don't think that, and this microphone, I don't think I'd have as good vocals as I have. So yeah, most of the stuff's free.
Outstanding. I have another side business. I do a lot of working with counselors, and it's amazing. The best material really is free. It's good stuff. So good job on that. We're coming near the end. I don't want to take the total wind out of you, but is there anything I didn't ask you on this interview that you really wanted to talk about?
I don't know if I really wanted to talk about. No, you say it's great, and you're sorry you missed it. I was surprised that nobody. It was really difficult to get reviews for this album. Very difficult. I was lucky enough to get Sleeping Village, and Monster Riff, and then. Harbinger of Doom, but very difficult. The other album, Absence of Universe, that came out last year, it was like in the top 15 of the Doom charts. So I was like super surprised. It was my first album out on Swamp label. It's one of those where it's like, wait, all right, what happened? But I don't know. It's one of those things that I would complain about, just not constantly. It's just like. Surprising, but
I am as
whatever.
Well. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it. I can't tell you kind of confidently. I think this album has legs, and every now and then, and the album comes out. I remember Doomsday Prophet brought their album out. It was like almost 2 years ago. And it wasn't until well into 2022 that all of a sudden that started ramping up. Other bands like Wizard Tattoo comes to mind, is another band that might have gone under the radar. I predict yours went seriously under the radar, and that's why, you know, getting you on here for the interview is really important to me. I think if there's a handful of albums this year that kind of got overrun by the sheer monstrous amount of music. And hey, man, the cream, it comes to the top, and I really do solidly believe this is one of those albums. It's a complete experience from beginning to end. It is amazing.
I very much appreciate that. I mean, yeah, you know, King Buffalo came out with a fantastic album this year. King
Yeah.
Lizard and King Gizzard, whatever.
Yeah.
That they came out with a great album. There were quite a few great albums this year. I mean, absolutely. So yeah, it's no surprise. Shoot, what else was I going to say? I don't remember.
Well, if and when you do, hit me up on Instagram, and we'll go into it a little bit more. Jeff, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today. Oh, I lied. One more question. How far into the next album are you already?
Well, so every album is a little different. And this one I'm really seem to be very much influenced by Queens of the Stone Age. I've got 2 songs already musically just about completed. I'm going to start writing lyrics. Again, right now, in the past few months, my heart's been a little worse. So I have less air, which apparently I run out of even while playing guitar. Who knew? Yeah, so it's a little slower. It's going a little slower.
Okay. Well, just be sure to get in touch with me before the next one comes out, and I'll see what the Clean and Sober Stoner crew can do to make sure that it doesn't, no more under the radar, man, no more stealth albums.